Haruka is a pathetic loser who lives a loner life away from his classmates and thinks he is the Sigma Lord. One day his whole class gets teleported to another world where they can choose their skills, but Haruka gets stuck with the worst of all the skills. He decides to live alone like usual, but ends up getting love bombed by his class girls who are all down bad on his seemingly useless but overpowered abilities. However, before any of this, a group of ugly-looking goblins are having a party and Haruka spies on them from a distance. He accidentally steps on a branch which gives his location away and starts to run away while the goblins run after him. He rushes through a forest and lures them into a trap which he had dug for emergencies. The goblins all fall in the hole and he feels glad that he was able to get away. Some time ago, when Haruka was a normal kid in high school, he was a certified loner who had no friends and spent his time reading books. He was very content with his life since he didn't want to be included with the jocks, or the nerd group, or the popular kids or any other group. Suddenly a bright circle appeared in his classroom and he realized that his whole classroom was about to be transported to another world just like the novel he was reading. He didn't want to be bothered, so he tried hard to get out of the class and even tried to kick the class door down, but it wouldn't budge. The circle started to spread and teleport his classmates away, so he found a vent in the ceiling and climbed up to get away from the teleportation. When he had successfully climbed it, he felt relieved, but the circle appeared and teleported him to the other world. He found himself in a white room where an old man appeared and explained to him that it was his first time teleporting 43 students away, due to which he was messing up. A screen appeared in front of him showing the skills which were available to everyone, and it turned out that all the players would get their skills on a first-come first-serve basis. This meant that by the time Haruka got his turn, everyone had taken the good skills and he was only left with the most pathetic skills like being a NEET or having good communication, but he got nothing powerful like a sword or magic powers. He yelled at the old man for doing this to him, and the old man in return granted him all the leftover skills before teleporting him away to the new world. Haruka appears in the new world and finds a bag on the ground as a result of one of his skills. It turns out to be an infinity bag which can contain limitless items, and he finds fancy clothes to wear as well. He then decides to check out his stats next, and gets an option to roll a dice to determine his stats. He curses the old man for dumping such lousy options on him and rolls 2 dice which give him the result M. He wonders what M stands for, and he then gets to choose his strength next. He chooses luckiness and all of his points get allocated to his luck. This means that he has average stats for strength and magic and weapons, but he has maximum points in luck. Once he is done cursing the old man again, he wonders where his classmates are and starts to explore the forest around him. He also finds contact lenses in his bag and wears them only to reveal that he can now see labeled items around the forest like potions and food and herbs. He runs around the forest like a little kid to check out various labeled items and spots edible mushrooms that he picks up for a meal sometime later. He also comes across a stream and drinks fresh water which freshens him up. Up next, he comes across a cave and prays that it doesn't belong to any monsters. He heads inside and finds the cave spacious, so he decides to use a lantern and a tent from his infinite bag to make camp for the night. He uses level 1 fire magic to light a fire and then checks his stats to see that his fire magic has leveled up. He notices that some of his other abilities have also leveled up because he was wandering in the forest, and after thinking for a while, he heads to sleep. The next morning, he feels relieved that none of the monsters attacked him during the night, and then makes breakfast for himself by using mushrooms that he found in the forest plus meat that he found in the infinite bag. He eats breakfast and wonders what he should do now. He decides to keep using the cave as his base camp and heads out in the forest to explore the surroundings. He then comes across 2 goblins nearby, so he gives himself the pep talk that he has to take on monsters one day or another. His only weapon is a stick, so he uses packing magic to include magic in the stick and then rushes out to attack the goblins. He hits one of them on the back and starts to beat him down again and again. After he is done, the second goblin rushes at him, but his movements turn out to be too simple and Haruka easily takes him down as well. The day passes by and he washes himself in the stream before heading to his cave. Before sleeping, he notices that he has leveled up and all his stats have doubled. He checks all the stats one by one and then heads to sleep. On his 3rd day, he decides that he is sick of eating mushrooms all day long and forces down some mushrooms as his breakfast. He heads to the forest and decides to work on his magical skills for the day, since some of his magic-related stats have improved. He gets distracted when he finds some mushrooms again, but he throws them away and focuses on the hands-on task. He uses magic warp to enhance his physical abilities and runs around to test his abilities. He notices that he can run very fast and can even attack continuously. He then becomes cocky and simultaneously takes on 2 goblins that he comes across. He takes them both down and thinks that he can even defeat 3 more goblins. Suddenly 3 goblins appear near him, but he decides to leave them alone and heads back to keep testing his magic. Soon time passes by as he hunts down goblins in the day and researches magic during the night. On the 5th day, he spots one of his class groups at a distance and decides to dodge them at all cost. He then uses clairvoyant magic to see that the girl group of his class is also at some distance away from him. He then notices the nerds group as well and the class representatives group at a distance. For a moment, he wonders whether he should join the class rep because he has known her since elementary school, but he ditches this idea as he reminds himself that he values his freedom and independence above everything else. The delinquent group comes near him, so he hides himself in the bushes and the boys hear a noise near them. They try to search the bushes, but spot a bunny instead, which distracts them. The guys then temporarily make a camp near the stream and Haruka stays a few feet away from them to hear what they are talking about. As expected, they talk about the melons of their female classmates, and they also discuss with their classmate Tanaka that his skill will allow them to do whatever they want. After yapping endlessly, they head upwards, which gives Haruka the idea that his classmates are all camped there. He heads back to his cave and grills mushrooms for himself. He then discovers to his shock that his loner level has increased, which breaks his confidence, but since he is only at level 3 he doesn't give it much thought. He also wonders why he still hasn't leveled up in his skills named Dumminess and Master of None, but since he doesn't know what the skills mean he cannot do anything. On the 7th night, he cannot sleep because of the noises he hears in the forest, so he heads out to check what's going on. He then discovers the group of nerds fighting goblins and wonders whether he should help them out. He uses his appraisal skill to check their stats and discovers that all the nerds are stacked with powerful abilities like saints or sorcerers, which make them more powerful than him. All the stats make him recall that his original class was filled with athletes and famous people, which always made him wonder how he had gotten in their class. He decides to leave them to their fate, but notices a few goblins sneakily attacking them from the behind. He recalls how the nerds would include him in their circle, sometimes, which melts his heart, and attacks the goblins from the behind to help them out. He takes them down and joins the nerds who have also taken down the goblins on their end. The nerds all thank him for saving them, and he leads them to his cave, which is now built and furnished. They all fangirl over the cave while he explains to them how he used magic to furnish the cave. He asks them what they were doing out so late, so they reveal that they are on a run and start sharing their sob story. A week ago, when the whole class was teleported to the new world, there was all sorts of confusion and everyone started to have breakdowns about the new world. The delinquents started whining, but on the other hand the nerds were ecstatic and the class rep advised everyone to shut up. Soon a group of goblins appeared after hearing all the ruckus and everyone crapped their pants on seeing them. The nerds jumped to the action and started using their skills of magic to fight the goblins. The jocks also grew some balls and joined the nerds to take down the remaining goblins. Afterwards, the class rep advised everyone to head to an area with more visibility so that they could avoid such sneaky attacks. They moved near the stream on her recommendation, where everyone started to figure out their abilities, and the class rep divided everyone in different groups to do various tasks so that they could all survive in the world together. They built a camp by working together and did day-to-day tasks together. Soon the group fell apart when the fancy gals announced that they wouldn't be doing anything, and after them the delinquents also stopped helping out in chores. The class rep along with some gals and the nerds did everything, and the nerds also defended the camp from monsters' attacks, due to which they were overworked all the time. They noticed that the delinquents had chosen stupid abilities like charm to seduce women, and that they would even launch sneak attacks on goblins to level up their stats. They discovered that the delinquents planned to increase their stats to seduce women and build their own harem, so they ran to their mommy class rep and told her everything. She also worked hard to increase her stats and level up. Soon the delinquents appeared with their increased stats to seduce the women, and the class rep beat them down. The nerds used their sealing skill to seal away their charm, and once their plan was discovered by all the classmates, they were banished from the camp. The nerds made them run away, and everyone lived in harmony for a little while. Soon the delinquents appeared with a revenge plan and attacked the students. They burned down all the tents and left after causing all sorts of trouble. After they went away, the girls started blaming the nerds for everything that happened, but the class rep and a few other students took their side. Still, the majority of the students were against them, due to which they took all the heat and left the camp. Haruka listens to their stories and sympathizes with them for suffering through so much. He throws a mushroom party for their sake and lets them stay with him for a few days. After a few days have passed, The nerds bid him goodbye and decide to find a town nearby so that they can start their lives as adventurers. They ask him to join them, but he refuses them and thinks to himself that his poor stats will only hold them down. Later he decides to pay a visit to his class camp and comes across an animal monster on the way. The animal bites him and he struggles hard but manages to put him down. He arrives late at the camp and finds that there is nobody there. He also senses enemy steps leading into the forest, but suddenly a group of his female classmates spot him and he tries to run away from them. They run after him and beg him to stop, and he eventually does so. The girls ask him whether he knows about the nerds group's location, and he thinks that they just want to use them again. The girls explain that they have realized their mistake, due to which they want to apologize to the nerds, and Haruka wonders whether they are sincere. He asks them whether they can get out of the woods by themselves and survive long enough to search for the nerds. The girls begin to whine and cry, which makes him panic too, and they ask him to teach them basic survival skills. He nervously says yes to them, but this ends up activating a subjugation skill in which he becomes their master and they become his minions. They start following him everywhere, as they even clean after him and bring him crystals from the monsters that he kills. He notices a scratch on one of the girls, so he gives her healing potion to heal herself, and she stupidly throws the potion back on him. He becomes soaked and scolds the girls, after which he starts wondering how he should make another potion. He is figuring this out when the class rep spots him and happily joins his side. She keeps calling his name, but he remains deep in thought, and she yells his name out loud. In the meanwhile, the delinquents plan and discuss that the girls are scattered around the old camp, due to which they should attack them soon. The class rep named Tuka scolds him for spacing out, and the rest of the class girls who were grouped with Tuko also arrive. They notice how the other girl group seems spaced out, and Tuka asks Haruka what's wrong with them. He reveals that he has accidentally subjugated the girls, which make all of them judge him for being a freak. Tuka shakes one of the girls named Shimazaki and asks her about what happened, while she tells him to stay still. The girls chit-chat among themselves while Haruka becomes bored and starts to practice magic to dig a basement. He ends up getting buried into the ground, and Tuka scolds him again for fooling around. He helps him get outside and reveals that Shimazaki has told her that he helped the girls out. The girls thank him for his help, and he asks them permission to let him go back to his house. They become shocked that he even has a house, and he explains that he has furniture and a bed and rooms as well. The girls start salivating at the prospect and hold a meeting to discuss what they should do. They then arrive at a conclusion, and Tuka asks him on all their behalf whether he will let them stay at his house for the night. He starts to have perverted thoughts on hearing their request and thinks that they are shameless for asking him. Tuko reminds him that they are surviving out in the wild, and he agrees to let them stay with him. They all follow him through the forest as he makes various turns and finally arrives at the cave. They are all breathless, and he then welcomes them to his humble abode. They all feel shocked to see the huge mansion that he has been living in. Haruka shows the kitchen and restroom to them. He then points out the bath to them, and the girls rush at the bath with the speed of light. Haruka thinks that they have become savages at this point, while Tuka feels embarrassed at their behavior. He gets out into a tent to get away from the girls, and thinks that he likes his loner life much better. Tuka joins him there and explains that the girls are all feeling relaxed due to the bath and food, which seems luxurious to them. She starts whining that she cannot even do anything, even though she is supposed to be their leader, so Haruka assures her that she is doing all right, and that the nerds were born for such a world, due to which she should compare herself to their caliber. He calls the nerds weird and consoles her, which makes her feel better. She wonders whether he is even weirder than them since he can live alone, and they both part ways as she bids goodbye to him. The girls sleep in his room while he keeps thinking about the girls in his lonely virgin tent. The next morning, he wakes up to find a girl wishing him good morning and asking him for breakfast. He thinks that he is dreaming, but the girl reveals that they are having fish and mushrooms for dinner, which immediately wakes him up. He rushes to eat fish and starts eating like a savage because he has only been eating mushrooms all this time. Tuka wonders why an expert like him couldn't catch fish in the water, so he explains that he found the fish too slimy when he tried catching them. The girls show him a simpler way of catching fish, and one of the girls throws lightning magic in the water, which zaps all the fish. He asks her to show him the magic again, and she conjures a lightning ball in her hands. He takes the lightning from her and uses his packing skill to make it even more powerful. He then throws the packed lightning into the water, which kills a fish, and he celebrates his first kill while the girls ask him what he did. He explains to them that he can use his packing skill to make a skill more powerful, and that by using her lightning, he has also now gotten lightning magic in his stats. He explains that he has got some useless leftover skills which allow him to gain magic, but they think that he is really creative. The girls play in the water while Tuko informs him that the girls are planning to head to the town, and Haruka thinks that they want to hunt down the nerds, but the gals tell him that they only want to apologize to the nerds. Tuka thinks they should level up before heading to the town, and Haruka decides to teach them a few tricks for their training. He lines up all the girls and asks all of them to show him their stats. The girls tell him about their levels one by one, and even their lowest level is 16, which turns out to be a lot higher than his own level, which is still level 7. He realizes that they are much more OP than him, so he gathers some low-level monsters and asks them to fight them. The girls declare that the monsters are a piece of cake for them, but after a moment the monsters easily defeat them. They all hold a review meeting in his tent, and after getting motivated once again, they rush out to defeat the monsters. One of the girls named Chika tells him that she was just testing him in breakfast, and that she was traumatized a lot when the delinquents attacked them in their camp. He thinks about how much the girls have been through, and Chika offers to keep bringing him fish every day. The next morning, he eats fish again and hears the girls planning to take revenge on the monsters by attacking them. Tuka stops them and asks them to train a bit more. The girls train for a while and finally face the group of monsters to take their revenge. Some of them start to become lazy, and Haruka scolds them for acting childish, while some of the girls fake being sick to get out of the fight. Still, some of the girls like Chika and Shimazaki remain serious and face the monsters head-on. They tackle the monsters and take all of them down. They celebrate their victory, while Haruka thinks about how finally he is going to resume living his loner life now. Tuka tells him that it's time for them to head to the town and that he is coming with them. She leaves no room for any argument, and the girls start packing for their journey. He helps Chika pack her stuff, and all of them begin their journey to head to the town. On one rainy night, one of the boys runs away from someone and falls under a tree. He pleads with the other person that he doesn't have the required magic skill, and the other person starts to choke him. He knocks him out and then leaves him there. The group heads through the forest, and Haruka reminds himself that their priority is to get out of the woods because the delinquents are after the girls. They all come across an orc monster, and Haruka becomes the knight in shining armor as he tells the girls to stay back. He rushes at the orc with his stick and then runs around him to hide behind a tree. He wonders which skill or magic he should use, and just then the orc attacks him from behind. He evades all his attacks and jumps on him to hit his back. The orc falls down much to his surprise, and they resume their journey. They come across another orc, and this time he decides to use the advice from the nerds, which was to magic. He throws a fireball at him, and the orc falls down immediately, which makes the girls whine that they cannot learn anything from him as he is too strong. Later they all set camp for the night, and Haruka plans their journey the next day. He uses a map to figure out their route, and suddenly his perception skill warns him that there is someone nearby. He searches around the forest and comes across the jock group from his class. They tell him that they were looking for him, even though he thinks that they must be after the girls as well. They comment that they cannot trust anyone and reveal that there is a skill which is scarier than puppeteer and charm skills which the delinquents have. Haruka thinks that the only skill worse than charm skill is hijacking skill, and the jocks tell him that the delinquents don't have that skill, so somebody else is bound to have it. Haruka jokes with them that he might have the skill, and they feel assured that he won't do anything since he is just a harmless dude. He reveals that he doesn't have the skill, and the guys ask him to apologize to the girls on their behalf. They go on their way, and Haruka catcalls them for fun. The next morning, the girls pack their stuff for another day, and they seem energetic, which makes Haruka wonder whether they ate some weird mushrooms for breakfast. He tells Tuka that the jocks were apologizing to the girls for their behavior, and she comments that she wants to tell him something. He makes a guess that she has the hijacking skill and makes fun of the jocks for not figuring it out sooner. She thinks that he should be afraid of him because hijacking is a terrifying skill which steals someone's skills by taking their life, and Haruka reminds her that even the nerds knew about her skill but they weren't afraid of her. She keeps whining about her skill, so he assures her that she is the least harmless person to have the skill, that the nerds sealed the charm skills of the delinquents, but never sealed her skill, which shows that they trusted her. She compliments him for all the effort, and he runs away in embarrassment. Soon the group takes a break in their journey, and Haruka fools around with the group by selling juice to them. Their journey progresses, and they decide to set camp for the night. Haruka spots the riverside at a distance, which makes him want to test his skills, so he asks Haruka and the girls to handle everything and runs towards the river. He rushes through the forest and uses warp magic to boost his speed. He then uses weight magic to make himself weigh less, and starts jumping on the trees to test his mobility. He ends up jumping too high, which gives him the vision of the river ahead, but soon he falls down from a great height and barely manages to not kill himself due to his boosted HP. After he is done fooling around, He returns and tells the girls that he was scouting the area, while Tuka fusses over his wounds. Their journey progresses even more, but they get some delays due to some girls getting lost or some girls getting distracted by the water games. They even face a lot of orc monsters on the way, but soon enough they complete their first journey and cross the forest. The girls celebrate the little success, and Haruka observes the field ahead of them. A bunch of hills block his view and he wonders how he should scout the area further, but then he notices a new skill in his skill set which says air walking. He uses it and realizes he can now walk in air, so he goes up and starts checking out whether they are going to face anyone soon. He spots a bunch of normal world people being attacked by monsters, so he steps down and tells the girls about the situations. The girls think that they should help the people out, but he reminds them that the people can be bandits too and shouldn't be trusted. Tuka thinks that they should help the people out and that they can save themselves if the group turns out to be bad guys. He knew Tuka would say something so heroic, so he offers to go and check out the bad guys by himself. Since the guys are pretty far away, he realizes that he won't be able to make it with his boosted speed, so he decides to use any technique. He uses magic warp to boost his fitness and weight magic to weigh himself less, after which he uses wind magic to propel himself in the air. Tuka also gets caught in the magic, and he uses airwalk to boost himself further in the air. Soon he realizes that Tuka is barely hanging on to him as well, and they both reach their destined location, but due to their high speed, they are unable to stop on time and crash land on the monsters. They end up knocking the monsters out and save the party which was being attacked by the monsters. The party reps introduce themselves as Ofter and Gatek, and thank him for saving their party from the monsters. They reveal that the merchants were getting attacked by the monsters, due to which the guild put out the request to get rid of the monsters, but they didn't think that the monsters would be so powerful. Haruka decides to wait for the remaining girls to show up, and he gives the party members some stamina mushrooms in the meanwhile. They cannot believe that he would share something so rare with them, and soon Tuka also wakes up after hearing all the commotion. The girls join them soon enough and start fangirling over the elves present in the party. The party people guide them to the nearest town called Omui, and the girls rush ahead like a bunch of kids on seeing the town. Haruka draws a line for them and they race with each other to get to the town. In the meanwhile, the delinquent group finally decides to attack the girls, and they discuss their strategy. They think that they need to find the nerds first who can unseal their powers, after which they will attack their powers. The rest of the schoolboys watch everything unfold from a distance, and realize that the delinquents are on a move. The girls explore the town of Omui, and start fangirling over everything. They keep getting distracted while Tuka reminds them that they still have things to do, and Haruka thinks that his task to safely see the girls off to the town is done, so he can continue to live his loner life now. The girls continue to fool around, so Tuka asks Haruka for his help, but even he slacks off from his duty. She then blows her whistle, which makes all the girls line up in front of her, and explains to them that their next plan is to sell their items in the nearby Adventurers Guild, get them registered and find an inn to sleep in. They also then have to find the nerd group, which is led by Oda, and Shimazaki complains that they are delaying the task, which makes Haruka tease her. They head to the Adventurers Guild next, which is filled with scary-looking dudes, and one of the guys tells Haruka to accompany him to the guild boss. He tells Tuka to get themselves registered, and accompanies the guy to meet the guild boss. The boss turns out to be a scary-looking dude, but he thanks Haruka for saving Ofter's party. Haruka returns in a relieved state, and goes to the guild shop to sell his crystals. The shopkeeper tells him to deposit the crystals on the counter, so he dumps a huge amount of crystals on the counter, which shocks the shopkeeper. She informs him that she cannot possibly appraise so many items, and asks him to return the next day. The girls get themselves registered as adventurers, and get mixed up with the other adventurers too. They push Haruka to get himself registered, so he heads inside, and Tuka tells Ofter that he is going to become a great adventurer. Haruka then gets the shock of his life when the adventurer tells him that he cannot become an adventurer till he becomes a level 10, and that since he is not a party member, he needs to have at least level 20 to become an adventurer. He feels doomed because of his level 9, and realizes that he may have to live that neat life forever, unlike the girls who have level 30. Tuka notices his upset mood, so she takes the lead and takes the girls to the guild lodgings where they can stay for the night. The lodgings seem pretty fancy, and everyone stays there. The next morning the girls make plans to explore the town since it's pretty safe, and Haruka heads to the guild to encash his crystals. The shopkeeper gives him all the cash that the guild has with the explanation that they cannot possibly encash all of his crystals. The guild boss apologizes to him for the cash shortage and asks him to get the payment in installments, to which he agrees. He gets 8 million in cash, and the shopkeeper explains the money market to him, that defeating all kinds of monsters can get him crystals. The girls decide to go all out with their shopping, and After suggests to Haruka that he knows a special place where he can spend his money. Haruka thinks that he finally get to clap some cheeks, but to his disappointment, After takes him to a weapons shop which sells precious weapons that can be found in the dungeons. The shop sells weird stuff, and Haruka spends all his time going through items like the invisibility cloak or fire magic enhancer. He buys a ton of stuff and spots a 7-fold necklace, so he asks the shopkeeper about it. The shopkeeper reveals that the necklace wearer can combine the effects of 7 of his things together, so Haruka decides to buy it as well. Tucker appears and starts scolding him for wasting so much of his time. He accidentally uses the necklace and combines some of his stuff, so the shopkeeper scolds him for using the items before purchasing them. He reveals that the items are all worth 10 million, so they bargain with him to reduce the price to 8 million instead. Soon Haruka returns to his lodging in a broke state and wonders what he should do. He cannot go out of the town because he doesn't have an adventurer permit, and even accompanying one of the girls outside seems like a bad idea. He decides that the town life is not enough for him and that he should return to the forest at this point. He then wears the invisibility cloak that he bought, which has now been combined with his infinity bag, and sneaks out of the guild. Tuka senses something off around her, but she fails to sense him and he manages to sneak out successfully. Once he is out, he makes a run for it towards the town wall where there is no supervision, and just when he is about to jump over it, some of his class girls spot him. They call him out, which causes him to break his jump and fall on the wall. He collapses on the ground and they huddle around him to ask whether he is alright. He notices that one of their groupies is missing, and then spots her stripping out of her clothes in broad daylight. All of them rush towards the girl to stop her, and Haruka scolds her, which makes her almost start crying. He then consoles her a bit by saying that the new clothes may look good on her, which shuts her up, and his escape plan ultimately fails. The next day, the girls head out for a quest of their own, and Haruka asks to come with them, but Tuka reminds him that he tried to escape on his own, due to which he cannot come with them. They leave the guild, and he then uses his invisibility cloak to make a run for it. He sneaks past the town guard and runs out of the town. Soon he spots a deserted village and then a bunch of goblins, but he tells himself that he cannot make any stops and should head straight to the village. He comes across some bandits attacking a carriage, and he is about to sneak past them when one of the bandits spots him and declares that all witnesses need to die. Haruka pleads with him that he needs to get to the forest, but they still attack him, and he uses his fire staff to throw fire bullets at them. The fire bullets take them down, and he wonders how he upgraded his stick into the powerful staff with the help of the necklace. The bandits attack him physically next, and he easily maneuvers around them to hit them. They wonder why he is so powerful, so he reveals that he has actually got no special skill. They then take out their weapons and start shooting at him through their weapon skills. Haruka dodges all of their attacks, and they soon tire themselves out, due to which they collapse on the ground. The carriage traveler turns out to be a girl named Marielle, who thanks him for his help and asks him to accompany her to the next town. She explains that she is the daughter of a town's lord and fears for her safety, so he decides to help her out and then return to the forest. He rides with her in her carriage, and she asks him where he is coming from, so he starts listing all the bad qualities about the town he is coming from. Turns out that Marielle is the daughter of Omui's lord, who is heading to Omui herself, and Haruka realizes that he is heading back to the town that he just escaped from. He tries to run away, but she keeps him confined in the carriage because she wants to show him the good qualities about Omui. In the forest, the jocks have a battle with the delinquents, and one of the delinquents stabs one of his own companions in a fight. The other delinquents try to get back at him, and he takes all of them down one by one. He then turns towards the jocks to get rid of them. Meanwhile, Haruka is forced into Omui, and Marielle takes him to the lord's mansion, which he finds huge. She goes inside to get changed, and he thinks of sneaking out, but just then she arrives and scolds him for thinking to leave. She declares that she wants to reward him and gives him dinner to eat, which he eats like a starved man on the run. She also gives him a lot of money and an ID card which will allow him to leave and enter as he wishes. She complains that he should at least remember the town's name, but he ignores her and keeps his focus on the food. The next morning, the girls fuss over him, and he keeps explaining to them that he stayed at the lord's manor and wasn't trying to run away. They decide to believe him and head out on one of their quests. When they are gone, he quickly heads out to leave the town for the 3rd time and shops at the weapons shop first. He then eats various foods and writes a letter to Tuka, saying he is leaving to check up on the jocks. He finally leaves after showing the guard his newly made ID, and this time he doesn't stop for any distraction till he finally gets to the forest. He spots the usual mushrooms, the stream and the goblins, but he starts to notice something is off. An orc attacks him even though orcs are much deeper in the woods, and he then spots a bloodstain which immediately makes him wonder why the delinquents haven't left the forest yet. He realizes that the jocks must have faced off with the delinquents in order to protect the girls, and sensing some footsteps he follows them. He then finally discovers all the jocks bloodied up and notices that they are barely alive, so he starts to use all of his potions to somehow heal them. One of them wakes up and asks Haruka whether he is alright, so Haruka tells him to focus on himself. The jock named Haruomi asks him whether the girls are all alright, and he assures them that they are fooling around in the town. Later, the jocks tell him everything that happened and that the delinquents are now dead. They explain that their classmate attacked everyone and stole all their weapons. Haruomi thinks that he is some kind of mathematical genius who may have been planning the attack all along, and that he is after Tuka next because she has the hijacking skill. Haruka wonders how he knows about Tuka's skill, and Haruomi explains that the maths genius kept asking them about Tuka, due to which they figured that she may have the skill. Haruka realizes that the genius may have deliberately left the jocks alive, so that they will seek out other classmates for help, and the jocks pitch to him that they want to fight the genius with his help, due to which they came to his cave to lure the genius out. Haruka thinks that he doesn't get into their mess, but he still decides to join them, and tells them that he will fight the genius alone by himself. They realize that he is dead serious, so they decide to leave everything on him, and he advises them to head to the town to apologize to Tuka. They wish him good luck, and head on their way. Haruka thinks that somebody needs to be present to protect the girls, due to which he cannot just fight with them, and that he will use his time to level to face the genius guy. The girls look for Haruka in the town, and don't find him anywhere. They decide to just wait for him, and level up in the meanwhile till his return. Haruka thinks that the genius classmate has a powerful weapon skill, due to which he needs to develop a skill that has an advantage over the weapon skill. He decides to keep fighting the goblins to test out his skill, and fights a bunch of them. He then comes across a goblin king, and it attacks him, so he thinks of a way to take him down. He combines a bunch of his skills, and after evading the goblin's attacks, he takes him down in one swoop. Just then the goblin emperor appears behind him, who has a level 50, and Haruka doesn't think he can take him down. He mixes his skills again, and decides to use the same move that he used on the goblin king. He sees an opening and hits him with the attack, but the goblin emperor gets back up and lunges at him. He backs away, but the goblin is too quick on his feet and keeps attacking him. He uses his staff to send him flying, but the goblin gets back up and even heals himself to restore his HP. It attacks Haruka again and sends him flying through the trees. He thinks that he is definitely going to get wrecked, but recalls the stupid jocks who trusted in him. He gets up and attacks the goblin again. The night passes by in the battle, and by the morning, he manages to take down the goblin emperor finally. He also reaches level 11 as a result, and goes back to his cave to look at his stats. He finally realizes that his skill called Master of None is actually very hard to level up, but it helps him acquire other skills and raise their levels instead. He drafts a plan to take on the genius classmate, and soon the genius classmate named Tanaka shows up at his cave. The girls return to town after leveling up and find a group of jocks outside the town. They notice that Haruka is not with them, and Haruomi tells them that Haruka is fighting all by himself in the forest. Tanaka taunts Haruka that the jocks are stupid to lead him to a loser like him, and reveals that he planned everything from the start by controlling the delinquents from within. He comments that he has even killed the rest of his classmates, and now he will definitely find Tuka to get her hijacking skill from her. Haruka stops him as he walks away, and declares that even a loner like him has people he wants to protect. Tanaka points out that he knows all about his useless leftover skills and releases his powers to start fighting him. He conjures rocks to throw at him and also uses a skill which slows down Haruka. He then launches his attack, and Haruka tries his best to dodge his attacks. He keeps evading all his attacks, and Tanaka compliments him for working so hard despite being a pathetic loner. He asks him when he started suspecting him, so Haruka explains to him that he started suspecting him right off the bat when he spotted a loner like him in the middle of the delinquents. Tanaka in return reveals that he started planning everything when he lost his chance to take the hijacking skill when they were all teleported to the new world. He then uses earth magic to conjure vines that restrain Haruka's feet and throws fire magic at him to finish him off. Haruka absorbs all of his magic with his staff and decides to counterattack while he is distracted. He rushes at him with his staff, but Tanaka conjures a sword and blocks his attack. He reveals that he was just thinking of ways to kill him and then conjures a bunch of weapons to attack him. He rushes at Haruka and starts blindly attacking him. He keeps switching weapons second after second, which confuses Haruka, and he fails to predict his movements or to come up with a plan to counter him. One of Tanaka's attacks sends him flying over the stream, and he thinks that he is done for if he cannot find a way to attack him back. Haruka also realizes that he has got the copycat skill, which means he can copy other skills, due to which he is able to use so many weapons by copying his classmates' skills. Tanaka confirms his suspicions that he has been copying everyone's skill, and that he plans to copy Tuka's skill, after which he will hijack her skill by killing. Tanaka laughs out like a maniac without any brain cells that he will soon become the most OP person ever, while Haruka thinks that he is definitely the worst kind of villain. Tanaka attacks him again, and Haruka blocks his attacks with his staff. He keeps evading his attacks easily, and reveals to him that he has realized the weakness of his copycat skill, which is that he can only use the copied skill 3 times. He explains that he made him launch a bunch of attacks to figure out his weakness, and Tanaka thinks that he can still easily take him down, but Haruka points out that he has also gotten used to his speed. He dodges his attacks and punches him in the stomach. He then lands continuous attacks on him which push him back and send him flying against the tree. He is about to attack him again, but Tanaka starts whining that he cannot be defeated by the likes of him and that he has got another OP skill left. He summons a blade and starts to attack him. Haruka wonders what's so good about his new skill, while Tanaka throws his weapon around. A lot of stones fall around him, and Tanaka hides behind a stone to activate his weapon. He then activates his skill called Death, which grabs Haruka and causes him to collapse on the ground. After he is done, he walks out and starts yapping that he finally managed to win after using up all of his skills. He begins to walk away, and Haruka casually gets up behind him. He calls him out and reveals that he has got a wellness skill which can reduce the effect of all illnesses and similar poisons like his death skills. Tanaka cannot believe his death skill didn't work, and Haruka explains to him that his luck stats are off the charts, due to which he can survive if there is a measly chance of survival. He further explains that he has the dummy skill, which means he can use his own body like a puppet, and avoid his meddling skill, which can restrain him. Tanaka throws a bunch of attacks at him, but he blocks all of his attacks and tells him to stop wasting his breath. He advises the nerd to admit his defeat, and Tanaka wonders why he is losing despite calculating everything, so much so Haruka reminds him that he cannot apply the same rules of the previous world to this new world. Tanaka starts to have a mental breakdown as he thinks about how he lived every day in the previous world in boredom. He spent all his time with his brainless classmates who could never match his genius, but things finally took a turn when they were all transported to another world. He saw the skills board and immediately wanted to have the hijacking skill, due to which he started planning how to dominate all of his classmates from the get-go. He planned everything, but still a good-for-nothing nobody is defeating him, which makes him feel even more psycho. He attacks Haruka wildly, who counters and blocks all his attacks in return. Haruka then throws away his sword and approaches him to take him down, but Tanaka at the last second uses a skill which controls his sword and it stabs Haruka suddenly. He gets his sword back and starts attacking Haruka blindly, while Haruka tries to defend himself in his wounded state. He in return smacks his face and walks towards him while reminding him that he got OP skills, but he never put in effort to level up. Tanaka once again summons his sword, but Haruka quickly attacks him with a combined attack and brings him down. He walks away in his wounded state and starts to feel the effect of his drained magic and wounded state. He recalls all of his classmates one by one, especially the girls, and then falls down on his knees, but suddenly his classmates grab him. The nerds catch him and reveal that they returned from the dungeons only to find all the girls and jocks very worried about him. They then came to the forest to look for him and found him. They take Haruka back to Omui, where everyone is waiting for him and the girls welcome him. They fuss over him and drag him with them to take a bath. The fancy gals, including Shimazaki, apologize to the nerds for kicking them out of the group, even though they were helping everyone out, and thank them. Haruka thinks that all of his classmates are now safe, which means he can safely return to his loner life. He tries to sneakily get away from everyone, but Tuka stops and asks him where he is going. He tries making excuses, but she hugs him and starts whining that she didn't know what to do if he didn't come back. He thinks she is going to cry, but she feels happy at his return. All the girls then promise to give him an earful, and 2 of them drag him with them. Haruka has a dream in which a creepy-looking skeleton waits for someone in the dungeon, and that it's all alone just like himself. The next day he wakes up still sore from his fight, and the nerds tell him that they are heading to the dungeon again to search for a rare item. They explain that the rare item can change people's perception and views about a person, which makes Haruka think that they wanted to change their image. They leave for the dungeon, and Haruka thinks he can finally head back to his cave too, but Tuka appears behind him in Super Saiyan 3 mode. He begs her not to scold him because all the girls already gave him plenty of an earful, but she reminds him that she never said anything and proceeds to scold him for acting alone and fighting Tanaka. She scolds him a lot, which makes him think that he cannot head back to his cave, or else she will raise hell to stop him. He recalls the dungeon rare item which can change people's perceptions and decides to use it to make the girls think that he is a nice guy so that they can allow him to go back. He heads out on his own, and on the other side of the town Marielle checks up on her dad, who is the Lord of Omui. He explains to her that he needs to work hard since their town is at the frontier of the monsters' attack, and just then a guard comes to tell him that a horde of monsters is heading to the town. Haruka is heading to the dungeon when he notices a group of orcs heading to the town, so he decides to warm up first. Tucker is chit-chatting with the guild boss, and Marielle arrives at the guild to announce that a group of orc is heading towards the town. She reveals that the monsters have defeated everyone in the neighboring town and are now heading towards Omui, so the guild adventurers decide to step up to save their town. Haruka faces the army of orcs on his own and starts to take them one by one. He also faces an orc king which he has never defeated before. He battles with the orc king and keeps fighting him till he takes down. Once he is done with everyone, he heads to the dungeons. Marielle and the adventurers post themselves in front of the town gate to brace themselves for the army of orcs, while Haruka heads inside the dungeon by himself. He explores the area and only finds useless junk which is useless to him. He keeps messing around and then decides to head back to the town to ask the weapon shopkeeper whether he knows something about the rare item. He heads to the town where the group of adventurers is waiting for him, and Haruka starts scolding him when she spots him. The adventurers ask him whether he has seen any orcs, so he tells them that he came across a bunch of ugly-looking orcs and that he defeated them. They all become shocked, and the girls scold him once again for jumping into danger all by himself. They take him back to the guild where Marielle thanks him for saving the town, and both she and the guild boss scold him for acting so recklessly. They caution him that the monsters have been leaving the dungeons a lot, and that they can even expect a horde of monsters to stampede in the upcoming days. They advise him to behave himself, and Haruka thinks to himself that now the guild boss and Marielle are also on his case, due to which he needs to find the rare item as soon as possible to make people like him. The next morning, he heads out to meet the weapon shopkeeper who tries to run away from him, and Haruka assures him that he hasn't come to buy anything, which makes him relaxed. He asks him whether there is any item which can make people like him, so the shopkeeper reveals that there is an infamous pheromone ring found in the dungeon which can make people like him. Haruka whines to him that he tried searching for a treasure on the first floor, but couldn't find anything, so the shopkeeper explains to him that the dungeons have close to 100 levels, and that the ring is probably at the 50th level. He further explains that he has to defeat each floor boss in order to move to the next floor, and that there is a legend according to which the dungeon may have a dungeon emperor too. He thinks that he needs to stock up on recovery items before exploring the dungeon, so he heads to the general store for some shopping. The nerds overhear his conversation and report back to the girls about everything that they heard. The girls discuss that Haruka will get in a lot of trouble if he gets the pheromone ring, due to which they need to stop him. In the meanwhile, Haruka casually strolls towards the dungeons, and the army of girls comes to stop him. They ask him why he is going to the dungeon, so he lies to them that he is going to get the Solomon ring, which can allow him to talk to the animals. They know he is lying, so they start to follow him, and the dungeon guard warns them that they cannot head inside since a bunch of monsters showed up just a day ago. Nobody listens to him, and Haruka storms inside while the girls follow after him. He thinks that they will get the pheromone ring before him, so he runs ahead, and Tuka warns him that he may fall into a trap. He reminds her that his luck stats are off the charts, and just then he trips on the ground, which makes him press a brick on the wall accidentally. A trap gets activated and he falls inside the wall. Tuka tries to catch him but fails miserably, and Haruka continues to fall down. He thinks that he is going to die due to the height, and when he sees the floor, he uses earth magic to make a cushion out of the floor. He manages to not die and lands safely on the floor instead. He thinks that he has definitely fallen down the 100 floors, and a spooky hall on his side makes him think that the final boss must be nearby. He then tries using airwalk to climb up, but fails to do it. He then senses that he has got a new skill which can allow him to navigate his way in the dark, and a trap detection skill as well. He activates both of the skills to confirm that there is no trap in the hall ahead, and then heads down the hall since there is no other way. He also notices that he is on the level 101 rather than the last 100th level, which spooks him out a lot. Meanwhile, the girls and the nerds also explore the dungeon to look for Haruka, and at the same time Haruka enters the boss room. A scary-looking monster appears who turns out to be the Dungeon Emperor with a level of 100. The girls and the nerds reach level 47 and discuss how there is a teleportation portal at every level which can transport the person back to the entrance. They think that it will be hard to go further down the dungeon, but Chika reminds everyone that Haruka has always helped them out. The whole group decides to keep pushing ahead to search for the Loner King Haruka. At the same time, Haruka realizes that he is pretty much doomed due to out-of-the-world stats of the Dungeon Emperor. He still attacks him nonetheless, and the monster easily blocks all of his attacks. He decides to counter his god speed first before thinking of any way to defeat him. Dark thunderous clouds appear above the dungeons, and Marielle discusses with her father that they may face an attack soon which is worse than the recent attack of the orcs. Her father asks her to instruct the Adventurers Guild to remain ready for an emergency. Haruka shifts all of his skills into speed mode and attacks the Emperor. They both fight each other, and he tries to go faster and faster to match the Emperor's speed. For a second, he sees that soon he's going to be stabbed, so he jumps back and realizes that his contact lenses have developed a new skill which can allow him to see the future for just a second. He continues to fight and starts to have fun even though his stamina and magic get consumed. Soon he is unable to fight with vigor, and the Emperor walks towards him with the same energy. It doesn't attack him, which makes him wonder why he isn't aggressive like the other monsters, and why there is no bloodlust coming from him. Haruka lunges at him again, but the Emperor dodges all his attacks and holds him off by extending his sword at him. Haruka confirms his suspicions that the Emperor is not killing him and that there must be some force which is trying to make him fight. He notices a dark energy over its head and that his own staff is slowly absorbing the energy. Even though he doesn't know what's going on, he decides to place his faith on his staff and continues to attack it with his staff to absorb more of the evil energy. Finally, the staff absorbs all of his energy, and the Emperor loses his dark vibe. Haruka tells him that he knows he wants to be killed, and the Emperor drops his sword in return. The dark energy starts to get released from his staff, which makes him think that he should finish the Emperor off as soon as possible before the dark energy pours inside him. He suddenly hugs it rather than finishing it off, and ends up activating his subjugating skill, which makes the Emperor his minion or a subjugate. The Emperor does not seem to mind the subjugation, and Haruka checks his stats only to realize that the Emperor is a girl named Angelia, whose level has been reset to level 1. He thinks that Tuka will definitely scold his ear off, and the both of them head out. They come across the level 100 boss next, and Haruka realizes that he cannot take on any monster at any cost. He spots the stairs on his side, but the monster blocks his way, so Haruka uses his earth magic to make a hole on the floor above. The hole reveals the level 99 monster, who is a Minotaur, and the Minotaur jumps on the level 100 monster. Their HP gets lowered due to the impact, and Haruka then knocks out both of them to take advantage of the situation. He obtains the crystals and notices that Angelica is definitely judging him. She points out at the monster's armor, which she wants, so he gets the armor for her. She wears the armor, which is too heavy for her frame, and suddenly transforms into a muscled girl with flesh. Haruka thinks that she is definitely scolding him, and she then storms off towards the next level. In the meanwhile, Haruka's classmates finally reach level 50 after much trouble, and discuss that it is possible that Haruka may have climbed back from the trap. They then come across the 50th floor monster, which is a huge giant cyclops. Marielle discusses with the guild boss that there is something happening at the dungeon, and he thinks that there is nothing to be worried about since the guards haven't reported anything to him. The other adventurers think that guards cannot be relied upon, and they decide to spread the word around to the other adventurers that they should be on guard. They all then discuss where the girls are, and Marielle hopes that her fear is unwarranted. Haruka gives Angelica a cape, which puts her in a better mood, and they both reach the 98th floor where another monster faces them. Haruka appraises it only to discover that holy magic will work against the monster, but he decides to use his staff instead, which can absorb all kinds of dark magic. His technique works, and he defeats the monster, which gets him a crystal. Up next, they both face the 97th floor monsters, which are a group of monster moths, and Haruka decides to use his fire magic to combat them. He throws a fireball at them, due to which all the moths rush at the fire, and then expands the fire, which kills the moths. They both go ahead and face the 96th monster, which is a bunch of monster caterpillars. He uses his big brain again, and uses earth magic to make a rolling carpet which can block the caterpillar's strings of webs. He then rolls the carpet over the caterpillars, and kills them in the process. They both head to the 95th floor next, where the next boss faces them, and it turns out to have a level 100, rather than the usual level 95 which it should have. The boss attacks Haruka with his huge sword, so Haruka jumps on his backside and tries to attack him from there. The boss dodges his attack, and in return smacks him hard, but he manages to dodge his attack. He wonders how he can combat so many of his OP moves, and the boss throws helper swords at him. Haruka gets the brilliant idea that he can use Angelica, who can fight against the boss, so he switches positions with her. She takes out her sword, and the boss also switches to another formation to fight her. Angelica rushes straight at him and takes him down in one move, which shocks Haruka since he thought that she had leveled down. The boss gets killed and they both move ahead. At the 50th floor, Haruka's classmates struggle against the Cyclops and the girls collectively try to block the monster's attacks. Their front and central line gets taken down and the girls report that they cannot take any more damage. The nerds and the jocks think about what they should do and recall Haruka's carefree attitude. The Cyclops attacks the girls again, and Tuka thinks that they are done for. Haruomi and Oda pick her up and reveal that they have an idea. The girls meanwhile block the Cyclops and Haruomi rushes at the monster. The girls also launch attacks at it, and he attacks one of his arms, but the Cyclops smacks him down with his other arm. Just when he falls down, Oda shoots at the Cyclops' eye from a distance and successfully manages to take down the Cyclops. The group celebrates their victory, and Tuka thinks that they will surely find Haruka soon. Haruka and Angelica walk through the 86th floor and feel the ground quaking while an army of monsters marches ahead on the upper dungeons. The dungeon guard thinks about how the kids went inside the dungeon despite the warning about the monster stampede, and just then a bunch of rats rush outside the dungeon. He then sees a bunch of monsters heading outside the dungeon, which makes him piss his pants. He rushes to the Adventurers Guild and informs the guild boss about everything. The adventurers all realize that the doomed day is here just when an army of most feared monsters head towards the town in a form of a stampede. Marielle thinks that her worst fears have come true, and the guild boss takes out an old text which explains that the dungeons are like a living creature which broadens the more you go lower, and when it gets filled, the monsters start to crawl out of it in the form of a stampede. They all discuss that the only way to stop a stampede is to defeat the dungeon monster, but wonder who can even defeat the dungeon boss. The ground around them starts to shake, so the guild boss orders the adventurers to take the common people to the shelters and orders Gatek to gather their people to start fighting the monsters. Haruka comes across griffins at one of the levels and throws poison fish at them. The griffins eat away at the fish, which knocks them down, and Haruka then advances to the next level. In the meanwhile, his classmates also cross level 54 and motivate themselves that they need to find Haruka soon, but just then they come across a group of werewolves. Outside the town, the adventurers take down the first wave of stampede monsters, but they don't think they can last for a long time if the monsters keep coming one after another. The adventurers discuss that Haruka's classmates are already inside the dungeons, due to which they can maybe ask them to defeat the dungeon boss. The guild boss thinks that Haruka may be able to take down the dungeon boss too, due to which they need to somehow inform him, and the adventurers suggest sending Marielle to the dungeon to relay their message. She starts whining that she is afraid of the dungeons, so the guild boss tells Ofter to go along with her to guide her. He thinks that he needs to be present to fight the monsters, but the others assure him that they will hold the monsters off without his useless help. Ofter agrees to go to the dungeons, and Marielle also grows some balls when she sees the desperate situation of the adventurers around her. Haruka and Angelica reach level 81, which consists of a water world, and Angelica slices some fish which were about to attack Haruka. He thanks her for the help and faces the floor boss, which is a bunch of psycho swordfish. He thinks that the fish can defeat him if they all come at him together, so he thinks of a way to take them down. He uses his temperature magic to cool the water down, which slows down the fish, and then packing magic to freeze the fish inside. The tricks work for him, and they both advance ahead as he keeps freezing the fish along the way. A huge swordfish follows and attacks him. It seems pissed off because of the attack on its friends, so it splashes a huge wave on Haruka, which pushes him into the water. Angelica takes out her sword to fight the boss, but Haruka jumps above the water thanks to his surfboard which he made with his earth magic. He rides along the waves and then jumps above the water to directly attack the boss fish on its head. The trick works and he manages to take down the boss too, after which he asks Angelica whether she is alright. They both then advance ahead and he finds the Ring of Fortune on the 79th level, which attracts happiness from the surroundings. Up next on the 77th floor he finds a blessed bangle which evades disaster, and on the 75th floor he defeats the necromancer boss. The boss drops a necromancy jewel for him, which grants the person control over the dead. He takes all the treasured items with him and thinks that he can definitely get rich if he sells them. He also thinks that he doesn't need the items since his luck is already maxed out, so he gives the items to Angelica with the explanation that he wants her to feel happy again after being cursed by darkness. She insists that she doesn't need any items, but he feels bad for making her put on the cursed armor, so he asks her to just take the items. She takes the items and feels very happy to have them. Haruka runs ahead while she takes off her armored head to reveal long shiny hair. She then wears the armor back and runs after him. On the 54th floor, The girls take care of all the werewolves and feel drained, but they motivate each other that they need to find Haruka. Suddenly they hear a ruckus and see Ofter and Marielle running towards them. On the 74th floor, Haruka and Angelica come across a fire round which pauses their journey. The girls tell Marielle about Haruka, which makes her start whining that she was counting on his muscular gains and beta attitude. The girls assure him that Haruka can help her out, but they wonder how they can find him as soon as possible. Haruka and Angelica slowly make their way across the fire floor where he uses his spatial awareness and trap detection ability to detect the traps. The heat starts to get to him and he even trips on the way, so Angelica grabs to steady him. She points to a nearby spot where he can take a breather from the heat. Tucker announces to the group that they don't have the time to rest now, and the nerds argue with her that they need to settle down. Haruka wonders what he can do to cool off and suddenly feels a breeze coming from somewhere. He finds a hole nearby and sticks his head inside to cool his head off. Tucker on the other end hears Haruka's end, and she also sees a hole which connects to his level. She calls him out and Haruka on the other end hears her voice. They both communicate with each other and he asks her for a rope which he can use to climb upwards. None of them have a rope, so he assures them that he will join them soon. She updates him about the situation in the town and that the second wave of the stampede is heading to the town. Ofter explains that the town will be destroyed if the third wave reaches it and that the only way to stop the stampede is to defeat the boss. Haruka looks at Angelica and tells them that he has defeated the boss already. They discuss why the stampede isn't stopping if the boss is dead, and Ofter asks him whether he finished the off. He insists that killing the boss is the only solution for the stampede, which makes Haruka wonder how he can save the town now. He thinks of a solution and assures Angelica that he won't hurt her but needs her help. He also tells his classmates that he will stop the stampede and they trust him, so they decide to leave the matter to him. Haruka also vows to save the whole of the town and to free Angelica from the prison once and for all. The huge giants from the stampede face the adventurers who try to take them down, and the adventurers tell the guild boss that they cannot hold off for much longer, but he reminds them that they need to protect the town no matter what happens. They think that the new adventurers will surely find a solution for the stampede and become motivated to fight once again. Haruka assures everyone that he is going to hurry to the upper level, and they relay to him that they are also trying to cross the levels to get close to him. He tells Angelica that they need to speed things up, and both of them rush through the next levels. He uses ice magic to freeze the reptiles at one level, while Angelica slices through the frozen reptiles. At another level, he uses fire magic to smoke the bugs out, and at the next level, uses a potion to combat a two-headed dog. Angelica then slices the dog while it's distracted because of the potion and takes it down. Haruka then sorts through the treasure that he has found on the floors and wonders how he can combine the items to utilize them the best. He shares with Angelica that he needs to do something once he gets back to the town, and she motions him to rest for a while. He admits that he is pushing himself hard, but he cannot stop now, and they both advance ahead to the 69th floor, which turns out to be a forest floor. They face a 69-level owl on the floor who releases a magical wave at them. Haruka flexes to the owl that his wellness stat means that such attacks don't work on him, but suddenly he starts to feel dizzy. He realizes that he is so worn out that he cannot even use his skills now and collapses on the floor. He wakes up to find Angelica carrying him through the forest and apologizes to her for making her do the work. She pats him and motions for him to rest for a bit longer while she will continue to carry him. The others come across a level 100 monster sphinx which completely drains them out, and Haruomi runs at it with a sword. He slices away at the sphinx's leg, but it heals right up, and even Oda's long-distance attacks don't work on him. Ofter tells the group that Dungeon Sphinx requires them to solve puzzles and cannot be killed with brute force, due to which they are even rumored to be immortal. They all discuss how they can defeat it, and the Sphinx then launches an attack on them which blows them apart. Haruka finally lands on his 2 feet and thanks Angelica for all her help. He senses a monster on the upper floor, and just then, his classmates fear for their lives. Tuka thinks that they are doomed and the Sphinx attacks her. Haruka rushes between them and jumps on the monster. He uses a gauntlet that he found in the dungeon to negate his attacks, while Angelica jumps after him and slices away his neck. The Sphinx gets defeated and Tuka welcomes him back. All of his classmates welcome him back and ask him who the knight beside him is. Just then the knight beneath him gives out and he starts to fall down. He uses his newly acquired skill to jump on the rocks and climb his way up. He then flexes to everyone that he isn't a loser anymore who can just fall down, but once again the ground beneath him gives out and he starts to fall down. This time Tuka declares that she won't let him get away, and she jumps after him to save him. She manages to catch him at the last second and holds on to him, which makes him comment that he can never run away from her. His classmates pull him up and Oda comments that they cannot celebrate yet. He points out the third wave of stampede monsters who are marching beneath their floor, and they ask Haruka what his plan is. He points out to Angelica and declares that she is the key to saving the town. The others wonder who she is, and Marielle urges everyone to hurry to the town to protect everyone. They all rush to the teleportation portal, which can take them to the surface, and Tuka asks him how he managed to defeat all the monsters in the lower floors, so he comments that his cleverness helped him out. Soon everyone arrives at the town gate where the adventurers are waiting for them, and they all spot the third wave of monsters. The third wave turns out to be bigger than all the other waves, and it causes the whole town to quake due to its enormous size. The Lord of Omui assures everyone that the adventurers will fend off the monsters somehow, and Haruka's classmates start to lose hope. Marielle declares that the town will now be destroyed while the guild boss tries to give her hope. Haruka then nods to Angelica, who walks ahead in front of everyone and takes out her sword. She lunges it into the ground, which releases a massive amount of power, and the magic travels through all the monsters. Haruka thinks that as the dungeon final boss, she should definitely have the power to reign over all the monsters, and her sword forms a magical circle around her. The circle releases a magical wave into the air which kills all of the monsters and makes them vanish one by one. Soon all the monsters disappear, and everyone become confused since they don't know what's going on. Haruka joins Angelica and bumps fists with her, while Tuka asks him what happened to the monster. Haruomi asks him whether he erased all the monsters, so Haruka reveals that Angelica dealt with the monsters, and Oda points out that she must be the Dungeon Emperor. Haruka assures everyone that Angelica is an ally who isn't dangerous to them, and that she saved him a couple of times in the dungeon while they were making their way up. He explains that her level has been negated, but she can still manage to control the monsters in close proximity. The girls ask him where the monsters have disappeared to, so he assures them that they must have been teleported back to the dungeons where they are chilling for now. Everyone realizes that the town is safe from the stampede, so they start celebrating. Later Haruka gathers all the items he brought back from the dungeons, which he plans to use to make an event. Tuka gathers everyone on his orders, and he sets all the items together. He announces that he is launching a garage sale in which he is selling all the rare equipment at low prices. This hypes everyone up, and they all jump on the equipment. The girls become monstrous as they push the guys aside and start to dominate all the equipment. Haruka then has to give some of his own materials to the nerds to satisfy them, and soon everyone takes one or another piece of equipment. While everyone obsesses over their equipment, Angelica stands on a side and Haruka wonders whether she can get involved with everyone else and become friends with them. Haruka collects his coins after using his big brain for business, and Tuka comes to thank him. He asks her whether she has gotten her required equipment, and she reveals that she did, after which she asks him to formally introduce her to Angelica. He tells her that she is a skeleton who is also a dungeon emperor, and she wonders whether he used the pheromone ring on her to make her listen to him. He reveals that he never found the ring, and that he had to use his subjugation skill on her, which pisses her off. She asks him why he had to use the skill, but he doesn't spill anything, so she takes Angelica with her to make her reveal all the secrets. Soon Angelica has a meeting with all the girls in which they ask her whether she is actually a girl and what her age is. They learn that she is the same age as them, and Tuka asks her to share her life story with them. She shares with them that she was trapped in the darkness all by herself till Haruka rescued her and broke her curse by using his subjugation skill on her. They then take her to the bath where all the girls strip, and Tuka starts to help her out of her armor. She thinks that she can still take a bath despite being a skeleton, but as she takes away the armor, she feels Angelica's skin instead. Soon a girl emerges from underneath the skeleton, which shocks all the girls. Later Haruka feels upset that he never managed to find the pheromone ring, but he notices that he has jumped 6 levels and a lot of his skills also got powered up. He tells himself that he only managed to stop the stampede due to Angelica's help, and that he needs to get stronger to manage on his own. The next morning, Haruka barges inside the guild to talk to Tuka, and she thinks that he must know about the true identity of Angelica. He asks her whether he can head back to the woods for the time being, and she allows him on the condition that he will come back. He then asks Angelica to come along with him, and she immediately agrees while Tuka wonders how the two of them can live alone in the forest. She thinks that Angelica's identity will be discovered, and they both then head out. She stops them but wonders why she is feeling so weird and finally bids them goodbye. Haruka and Angelica arrive at the forest, and both race together through the forest. He arrives at the edge of the cliff and falls down, but this time he uses his magic to land safely. Angelica also arrives at the end of the cliff and slips on some mushrooms, due to which she falls down as well. He catches her and wonders why she is so heavy for a skeleton. Later at his cave, he takes a bath and calls out to Angelica that she can join him as well. He jokes around that she is a lady skeleton after all, and she pops inside the bathroom in a towel, which shocks him to no end. He finally confirms his suspicions that she is Angelica, and the both of them head to his room to talk things out. He asks her whether she can talk, but since she has been a skeleton for so long, she cannot find her voice yet. She then explains through gestures that the Dungeon Emperor was originally a monster who didn't have a life and moved through the spirit alone, but the cursed armor restore her flesh. Afterwards she wore the dungeon bracelet which broke the armor's curse, and the necromancer jewel helped her restore her life force. He realizes that he has helped her come back to life, and that she helped him out to thank him, but he is robbing her of her freedom by pulling her along with him. He asks her to do whatever she wants now since she is free, but she shakes her head in response and hugs him. She starts to cry, which makes him realize that she has been alone for a long while, due to which she wants to stay with someone. He wants to see her smile, so he asks her whether she would like to hear a fun story, and then starts yapping his mouth off. He keeps talking the whole night till she falls asleep laughing. The next morning, he asks her to seriously spar with him and explains that he is working on his skill which he wants to test out with her. He thinks that she must have powered up since the dungeon, and they both take their place for the fight. She lunges at him and he uses his perception skill to dodge her attacks. He dodges 3 of her attacks and hits back at her, but in the end she manages to overpower him. He explains to her that he is working on his skill shift, and that one day he will definitely become stronger than her. They both catch some fish, and he asks her whether she would like to eat hot pot. She doesn't know what it is, so they head to the kitchen, and he teaches her how to cut fish. They make fish hot pot together and eat it to their fullest. After they are done, she motions for him to join her in the bedroom and asks him to sit beside him. He wonders what's on her mind, so she gets behind him and puts her hand on his shoulder. He realizes that she wants to give him a massage to say thanks, so he allows her. She then gives him a massage but misses all the right spots, and Haruka feels even more stiff by the end of it. She asks him what she can do more for him, so he takes her outside and they both gaze at the stars together. He asks her to sit close to him as he thinks about how she has only known battle all her life. She suddenly gets up and tries to say something to him but gets embarrassed at the end and turns around. Haruka assures her that he understands that she is trying her best. He thinks that she should take the next step in her life, so he suggests that they should head back to town, and she agrees. The next day they both head to the town, and it starts to rain on the way. He holds her hand and they both run to the town together. They arrive at the town square where they meet all of his girl classmates, and they tease them for holding hands. They both jump apart, and the girls all surround Angelica to ask her about updates on her life. Tuka whistles to keep them in line and welcomes Angelica back as well. He tells Tuka that he will be counting on her as well. The guys then surround him and ask him to spill tea regarding his relationship with Angelica, so he yells at them and scares them off. Angelica approaches him again, and he asks her to get involved more with the girls. He turns back, but suddenly she says the words "thank you." He quickly recovers and tells her that he understands her. Angelica heads back to join the girls, and he thinks about how all of his classmates have different troubles and anxieties. He thinks that every one of them is alone in some way or another, and that he is also a certified loner who will master the way of the new world all by himself.